So everybody loves grilled cheese sandwiches, especially kids, but sometimes the best grilled cheese are at restaurants. So today I'm gonna be sharing with you guys the secrets of a delicious grilled cheese. Okay, let's start off with the sourdough bread. I'm using this for two main reasons. Number one, the sourness of the bread really stands up to the gooey cheese and the heavy butter, which we're gonna be using a lot of butter. And sourdough has health benefits to it. So a lot of restaurants are using sourdough and you don't even know it. So highly recommend this. Of course, you can use any bread you want. White bread is very popular, but sourdough is where it's at, and plus my mom bakes this fresh for me anyways. Next is the cheese. The real secret with cheese is grate it yourself. So I talk about this with pizza, and of course a lot of people, they use pre-sliced cheese, which is definitely very convenient, but the thing is there's not any other additives, and it's gonna be way more fresh. The flavor is gonna be better. But in terms of what cheese you use whatever you like. Cheddar is the standard. I like Gruyere, like a white cheddar too, but for the kids, they just like the cheddar. You're gonna use a lot of butter. You're gonna see when I put it onto the grilled cheese sandwiches. This is what's gonna give it its golden brownness, its deliciousness in terms of the bread being perfectly toasted. And at the restaurants, they're using a ton of this. In fact, I bet you they got a big old tub of butter just sitting in the back, and they're just dipping into it with a huge knife, and they're putting plenty of this on every single slice. So also another tip with this, leave it out. So you want this to be at room temperature so it's easy to spread. We always have this out because we like to spread our butter on everything. Leave it out for an hour before cooking this because it's gonna make your job way, way easier. This is totally optional. I'm actually making this for Judy right now, but she's not a big fan of bacon. I want some bacon, and what I would suggest is cut it in half. You want to cook them in smaller pieces. There's nothing worse than a piece of bacon being in your sandwich and then you taking a bite of it, pulling it out, and take the whole thing with it. I like to slice them into smaller slices like this so it's easy to put into your grilled cheese. The reason I'm starting to do this right now is as I'm putting the grilled cheese together, I'm going to start cooking these on the pan that I'm going to be grilling the grilled cheese on. Before I stack the sandwiches up and get those all ready, let's talk about the pan and let's get the bacon started. I prefer a cast iron. It's gonna have a lot of heat retention, meaning the really heavy bottom, which cast iron has the heaviest, will just retain a lot of heat, so it's not gonna have uneven cooking, and also these are super cheap. I highly recommend buying these at a thrift store because a lot of people get rid of them and you can get it on the cheap. I've already had this warming up for a while. Another thing too is we're gonna be doing this on a medium heat, not too hot. I'll explain more about that later when we actually make the grilled cheese. But as I mentioned before, I'm gonna get this started. A bonus of doing bacon is in addition to just having bacon for your grilled cheese, some of that bacon fat is gonna be left in the pan and will further flavor your grilled cheese. Now, obviously, if you have somebody that is allergic to bacon or, you know, like a vegan, I wouldn't do this before cooking it. We all love bacon. Even if Judy doesn't like it inside of her grilled cheese, she won't mind that flavor being on the bread. And again, this is another way to add flavor to the outside of your bread, kind of without doing a lot of extra work since you have to cook this anyways. Okay, so while the bacon is cooking, the other thing I'm gonna start doing is heating up the tomato soup. Okay, the reason a lot of restaurants add tomato soup to their grilled cheese pairing is not just because it tastes good. It pairs well because of the acidity of the tomatoes. See, if I don't have tomato soup or tomato bisque in this case, this is the Costco tomato bisque, I'll usually just get tomatoes from my garden or just have tomatoes because the acidity of the tomato just goes so nicely with the cheese, that really ooey gooey, decadent umami cheese. And so it's a nice balance. So we love tomato bisque, but a tomato soup or any kind of tomato, even putting sun-dried tomatoes in the grilled cheese will kind of mimic a little bit of that, you know, magic. So I'm just gonna have this heating up while I'm making the grilled cheese next. By the way, I love this Costco tomato bisque. It's one of my favorites. It's even hard for me to make it this good at home from scratch, so we often buy this when we know we're gonna have grilled cheese at home. All right, so for the bread, I don't like to have them too thick. I just get rid of this edge part. I don't use that for grilled cheese. Now, a little trick here though, if you had to, is just flip it around. So you stack the cheese and everything on this side, but have this cut side exposed to the outside, okay? I don't like to have it too thick, but I also don't want it too thin. You want it thick enough so it holds, but also you don't want it so thick that you're getting more bread than cheese. So this is about the thickness I go. Some people like to smash their bread. I don't. I want the bread to still keep a little bit of its fluffy bodiness, if that makes sense. So for the cheese, you gotta shred your own cheese. It's way less expensive. I mean, sometimes, in some cases, 2 times cheaper if you do it. Another bonus is it lasts longer in the fridge because it's just not separated. It's just, you know, a lot of aged cheese, they actually keep the outside exposed to the elements of the air, and then inside is the cheese, or there's often some kind of rind. So I think for me, it kind of acts that same way. I'm using the big graters on this cheese grater here. I don't need it to be really fine. And I'm just gonna go ahead and shred this. Another bonus of shredding your cheese is if you have multiple cheeses, what you do is you shred your cheese and then you can mix it together, and it's easier to have it incorporated and integrated and just mixed up together rather than having different slices of different cheeses stacked on top. And it's just my preferred way of making grilled cheese. Time to stack. Oh, by the way, my mom, for whatever reason, had 1 cranberry in here, so that's what that is. I'm going to stack this first because I find it's easier to butter when you've got something to grip and it's got some body to it. So that's after I'm done stacking it, I will go ahead and butter each side. There's another reason why I like using shredded cheese, because it's just easier for the cheese to kind of wrap itself around whatever you're using in your grilled cheese sandwiches. I mentioned before, if I was using 2 different kinds of cheese, like a Gruyere and a cheddar, that it would mix a lot easier, so you already get that mixing happening. Ooh, that's hot. I'm leaving 1 for Judy. You want to have cheese on both sides. That's another thing too. A lot of people put the cheese on just one side, then the cheese doesn't stick to the meat if you're using ham or turkey, or in this case bacon. That's why you want cheese on both sides. Now if you had a slice of cheese here, you'd be using maybe more cheese than you need. You just need enough cheese so that it sticks to the other side of the bread. Now, the grilled cheese that doesn't have any meat, I will still add just a little bit of extra cheese to balance it out, but not as much as I would normally. And then you just stack. Now, you probably noticed there's a lot of cheese falling out. This is another secret of good grilled cheese from a restaurant. All those little scraps, those stragglers, they're gonna hit the pan and they're gonna create these cheese crisps, which adds so much flavor. So just leave it, enjoy it, you're welcome. Last but not least, gonna butter. So this butter here, room temperature, so it's just easier to spread, really easy. Now it's a little cold in the house, so it's not as soft as it normally would be, but don't skimp on the butter. You wanna cover every single nook and cranny, and this is definitely one of the secrets of restaurant grilled cheese. They're using a ton of butter, and that's okay. You don't eat grilled cheese every single day, so that's about how much I'm gonna put on each side. I'm gonna go ahead and butter all these and start grilling. Okay, sandwiches are ready to go. You won't need the butter anymore. Also, dump out whatever excess oil is in here. I've got the heat on again because I turned it off after the bacon was in. All I'm doing here is gonna wipe out the excess oil. Be careful, you don't want that oil to go through that napkin and burn you. And I'm trying to get all the little tidbits. I don't mind some of the bacon grease being in there and even these little crusties, because that's all flavor that'll be added to your grilled cheese. You don't want it too hot though, because you want to grill your cheese kind of low and slow. It's not gonna be super low, but yeah. Once that is nice and warm, I'm gonna turn the heat all the way down to low. See, the thing is, even though you turn the heat down to low, because this is a cast iron and it's got so much metal at the bottom, it's retaining a lot of that heat. So you just need it on, maybe a medium low would be good. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add the grilled cheese. I'm just doing 2 right now. So you're already hearing a sizzle. You're just gonna let it do its thing. It's gonna take about 2 to 3 minutes. And when you flip it, you're gonna notice it's still not quite melted, or at least the cheese is still kind of intact. That's okay. We're gonna flip this about 2 or 3 different times. So it's been about, I wanna say 3 minutes. What I'm gonna do now at this point is flip it carefully. Make sure you have a nice big spatula. That's also another restaurant secret. They don't have no chintzy spatula. They have a nice heavy duty one. My goal here is to flip it without disturbing the cheese because it's not quite melted, so. All right, so there is a little bit of color. That's okay. I don't want this much ideally because I want it to toast slower. It's obviously not gonna hurt it. In fact, it's probably still gonna be super delicious. Maybe I waited too long to flip it. Okay, so a little more color than I normally would want. That's okay, because you want it low and slow, so I turned down the heat. So you gotta always be adjusting. Okay, so a lot of people like to smash their grilled cheese. Nothing wrong with that, but I don't smash it until I do the first flip, because if you smash it with your spatula on that raw butter, the spatula is gonna stick to the bread. But now that I've got, you hear that? A little bit of a crust, you can smash it. So the way I do it is I have this little weight, I have the spatula, I'm gonna just smash it just a little bit. Now, you don't even need this weight, but this definitely makes it a little bit easier. I mean, this spatula is so nice. I can actually smash both at the same time. But don't leave it on, okay? Because as I mentioned, I don't want it to be smashed to a thin crisp. Right, so a lot of people, they like to smash their grilled cheese till it's like a thin crisp, and to each their own, have it the way you want it. But I find a nice balance of having it smashed a little bit, but still having the body. So the bread still having this fluffiness is a nice contrast. The crispy crust outside and that fluffy inside still being intact, so you get that breadiness. That's what I'm going for right now. So these are ready to flip, so I'm gonna get back to cooking. Okay, at this point the cheese is melted probably on both sides, so the flipping will be way easier. Oh yeah, there we go, there we go. See, the other thing is if you put enough butter, you're gonna get that golden brownness. This is a little bit beyond what I would normally go for. At this point, I'm actually turning off the heat because there's enough residual heat in this pan for it to continue cooking. Say the cheese inside of here is not melted. Little trick is, get a little cover and just cover it like this. What it's gonna do is gonna retain some of that heat that's coming from the pan, and it's gonna make sure to melt everything. So this is what I'm gonna do for this very last part, and then it's ready to serve. Look at this cheese. Ooh, cheese pull. All I'm doing here is making sure that's nice and melted, and that is. Oh yeah.
This bread is so good.
Sourdough.
What cheese did you use?
Cheddar.
Oh, just the cheddar?
Shredded. Freshly shredded.
Oh, so good. This is like the perfect cold fall day, rainy day food.
Very easy.